Amina lay in her bed at Lamecca, engulfed in a sleep so deep that the world could have ended outside her window and she would not have stirred. It was the kind of sleep where even dreams were denied, a void of complete darkness and stillness. Induced by the potent sleeping pills Shadi had cunningly slipped into her wine earlier that afternoon, their strength enough to keep a grown man unconscious for 12 hours. And as Amina sank deeper into unconsciousness, the sinister currents of fate were already moving against her best friend. For while she floated in oblivion, driven by jealousy, masked as affection, had walked into a trap set for her own greed, a ritualistic shrine where the price of envy was about to be paid in blood. And as the hours passed, the moon traveled across the sky, unnoticed by Amina, who remained blissfully unaware of the chaos outside her bedroom walls, until midnight approached and the effects of the drugs began to fade. Her eyelids fluttering, fingers twitching, her chest rising with shallow, uneasy breaths as consciousness returned in hesitant waves. The room barely illuminated by a weak streetlight, casting shadows across her walls. Her head heavy, mouth parched, limbs weak, each movement a monumental effort as confusion and disorientation gripped her. "What happened?" she whispered hoarsely. The memory of the morning, the birthday cake, the wine, Shadi's smile already fragmented, her phone blinking Chardin Lingsen Fin AM, jolting her with the realization that nearly 18 hours had passed in a drugged stupor. And panic creeping in, she sprang upright, only to be dizzy, clutching her head as she recalled nothing past the morning celebration. Shadi's absence becoming increasingly unsettling, the dark, silent house amplifying every heartbeat, calling for Shadi with no answer, wandering through empty rooms strewn with abandoned clothes, makeup scattered across the dressing table, a cake half-eaten and wine left untouched, each clue painting a picture that contradicted reality. Amina's mind raced, piecing together the puzzle, dialing Shadi's number repeatedly to no avail, anxiety clawing at her chest until a familiar voice, blessing, pierced the silence via an unexpected call. Excitement and fear in her friend's tone as she recounted the chaos of the birthday party that Amina had never attended, the ambushed celebration, the armed kidnappers, the mistaken identity of the girl in the red dress, now revealed to be Shadi herself, swept into danger by her own envy. And as Amina listened, shock and horror flooded through her veins, the truth dawning with terrible clarity that Shadi had tried to claim her life, only to fall victim to her own wickedness. And the weight of betrayal pressed on Amina's soul as she contacted her mother to reassure her of her safety, every word tinged with grief and disbelief. While the joyous celebrations were revealed to be a nightmarish trap orchestrated by Shadi and exploited by darker forces. And as Amina sat alone, piecing together the events that had nearly destroyed her, she realized the precarious balance between trust and deceit, the fragility of life in the face of jealousy, and the urgent need to act wisely in a world where appearances masked deadly intentions. Her thoughts a tempest of fear, sorrow, and clarity. Understanding that the innocence of a birthday could conceal the shadows of human greed and malice, that even the closest friends could harbor treacherous intentions, and that survival required both courage and vigilance, for the world was a maze of hidden dangers, where a single slip of trust could invite disaster and Amina, shaken yet determined, resolved that this night would not break her spirit, that the lessons of betrayal, envy, and mortality would guide her, shaping a resolve that no darkness, no deceit, no malevolence could ever extinguish. The phone call with Blessing left Amina's mind spinning, each detail of the birthday party fiasco replaying like a nightmare she hadn't experienced herself, her heart thundering as the truth of Shadi's treachery and K-Money's sinister intentions sank in. She sat frozen on the sofa, staring at her hands, thinking of the girl in the red dress her best friend sacrificed in a ritual of envy and greed. And yet, paradoxically, she had been spared, left alive in her quiet home, unaware for nearly 18 hours that her life had narrowly escaped the grip of darkness. And as the night deepened, Amina's thoughts raced through months of subtle signs. The way Shadi had lingered a little too long whenever Amina spoke of K-Money, the flicker of jealousy hidden behind smiles, the obsession with knowing the details of Amina's life, each seemingly minor moment now revealing itself as part of a calculated pattern. And then the horrifying memory of the kidnapping months ago, the supposed escape of Shadi during that earlier incident, which now seemed suspiciously convenient, each recollection twisting her stomach in knots. The realization dawning that Shadi's envy had festered into a dangerous plot that could have cost Amina her life. And she thought of the red dress again, the symbol of her own blessings that had been stolen by her friend's greed, and the image of Shadi being abducted in her place, blindfolded and dragged away by armed men, became burned into Amina's mind, the injustice and horror of it overwhelming her, yet paradoxically offering a grim form of relief that she had survived, her pulse racing as she dialed her mother's number to reassure her of her safety. The conversation filled with tears of relief and whispered prayers, and then the questions began, piercing through her mind like shards of glass. Why had K-Money orchestrated such a massive party without even a hint to her? Why had he allowed the dangerous chaos to unfold without verifying her presence? And what did it reveal about the man she had trusted, the one who had promised her a life of love and security? Suddenly the image of him in his lavish mansion, surrounded by wealth that had been built on deception and ritualistic crime, filled her mind, a terrifying contrast to the innocence of her own home. And as she pondered these questions, Amina realized that surviving was only the first step. She needed strategy, caution, and intelligence to navigate a world where even the people she loved could harbor deadly intentions. And she began to make mental plans, noting every detail about K-Money's wealth, his movements, his past deceptions, and the evidence she could collect, each thought a weapon against future harm, while grief for Shadi's death and guilt for being spared weighed heavily on her, a constant reminder that human envy could manifest in deadly ways. And yet, amidst the fear and the sorrow, a spark of clarity emerged. She would not be a passive victim. She would gather her strength, protect herself, and expose the evil that had nearly claimed her life. And so, throughout the long, silent night, Amina sat by her window, watching the streets bathed in moonlight, her mind a whirlwind of planning, mourning, and determination, the shadows of betrayal lingering around her. Yet she resolved that no darkness, no envy, no malice would ever dominate her spirit again, for survival was no longer just a gift. It was a responsibility, a call to courage, a lesson carved into her very being that vigilance, wisdom, and patience were as crucial as trust. And as dawn crept across the city, painting the world in pale light, Amina knew the path ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges, deception, and danger. But for the first time, she felt the quiet power of control, the steady heartbeat of someone ready to reclaim her life, unshaken, vigilant, and resolved to rise above the shadows cast by jealousy, greed, and human wickedness. Amina's relief, after surviving the night of Shadi's sacrifice and K-Money's sinister schemes, quickly gave way to terror as the next few weeks unfolded into a relentless nightmare. The moment she realized that danger was far from over, starting with the first ominous messages, small at first, just enough to unsettle her, then escalating to threats and harassment that made her check over her shoulder everywhere she went, K-Money's obsession growing darker with every ignored call, every unanswered text, his presence looming in unexpected places, the market, her PPA office, even the streets she thought were safe. And then the day the Range Rover appeared behind her taxi on the darkening road, headlights glaring like predator eyes, her pulse racing as the driver pushed the vehicle dangerously close, forcing the taxi to swerve through narrow streets. And with every turn, every dodge, Amina's mind replayed the horror of the party, Shadi's betrayal, and the realization that the man who claimed to love her was a predator, calculating, obsessed, and violent, a man whose wealth and power could almost bend the law in his favor, yet who had clearly underestimated her resolve and the chance of authorities intervening. And when she finally reached the safety of her compound, slamming the gates behind her, heart pounding, she knew her life had changed forever, no longer innocent, no longer naive. Every glance over her shoulder, a reminder that survival required vigilance, strategy, and courage. And then the night brought more terror. Banging on her door at 9 p.m., K-Money himself, accompanied by two imposing men, one brandishing a cutlass, threatening her in the dark, demanding she open the door, each second stretching into eternity as fear, adrenaline, and prayer collided in her chest. And yet, in the chaos, her training, her resolve, and her quick thinking became her shield, dialing Sergeant Fick while hiding in the cramped bathroom, whispering every word, describing every detail, the pounding on the door growing more furious, each crack in the wood, and then sirens wailing, police surrounding her home, commands shouted, warning shots fired, her lungs heaving with relief as she emerged, witnessing K-Money and his men handcuffed, his face twisted in rage, eyes locking with hers, a silent acknowledgement of power lost. And as the immediate threat subsided, Amina's mind shifted to action, reporting every incident to the police, documenting threats, capturing screenshots, and gathering evidence, understanding that only by combining courage with procedure could she protect herself. And the days following became a careful balance of normalcy and caution, moving through life acutely aware of the shadows cast by wealth, greed, and obsession, while simultaneously mourning Shadi, contemplating human envy, and realizing that survival was no guarantee, only a fragile gift. And through this, a deeper wisdom began to form in her, that trust must be earned, vigilance must be constant, and that peace required self-reliance. And even as K-Money's threats escalated into slashed tires, trespassing, and lies to her supervisors. Amina learned to navigate a world of danger with intelligence, patience, and courage. And in each encounter with fear, each message of menace, each moment of near death on the road, she grew stronger, more determined to reclaim control over her life, and ultimately, Chapter 3 closed not with victory, but with a hard-earned understanding that the path to safety and freedom is paved with preparation, awareness, and the refusal to allow terror, obsession, or greed to dictate one's fate. And Amina, now wiser, steadier, and unbroken, faced the challenges ahead with a blend of fear, strategy, and resilience that would define her survival, her future, and her pursuit of peace. The morning after K-Money's failed attempt to break into her home brought Amina a fragile sense of relief. Yet she knew the danger was far from over, and with determination in her heart, she prepared meticulously, gathering every piece of evidence, from threatening messages to call logs, documenting every encounter, every sighting, every instance of harassment, and then heading to the police station to report him formally to Sergeant Fake, explaining in detail his stalking, criminal harassment, and attempts to intimidate her, while also sharing her suspicions of his involvement in internet fraud and ritualistic crimes, which Sergeant Fick noted carefully, assuring Amina that, with enough evidence, law enforcement could act decisively, and she left the station feeling a mixture of fear and hope, knowing she had taken the first step toward protecting herself. But the weeks that followed were tense as she watched K-Money's obsession simmer. The man's arrogance rooted in his wealth and influence, until finally, a month later, EFCC officers arrived to arrest him on charges of advanced fee fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy, bringing a formidable legal force into the battle that had become her life. And as K-Money was handcuffed and transferred into their custody, his disbelief and fury evident, Amina felt a cautious vindication, the law, finally, standing on her side, and within weeks, a thorough investigation revealed staggering evidence of criminal activity, hidden cash, multiple bank accounts, dozens of laptops used for scams, falsified documents, and most chillingly, a secret compartment in his study containing a black book detailing ritual sacrifices, names, dates, and locations, including girls who had disappeared over the years, confirming Amina's darkest suspicions about his character. And forensic investigation uncovered human bones buried near his shrines, DNA tests matching missing persons, shocking the nation and confirming that K-Money was not merely a fraudster, but a serial killer and ritualist. The news spreading across every media outlet, leaving people horrified and sparking debates about wealth, greed, and the exploitation of innocence. And through all of this, Amina remained grounded, witnessing justice unfold while also reflecting on the lessons learned. Trust is precious. Jealousy can be deadly, and true wealth is measured in peace, not material gain. And after the swift public trial where the evidence was undeniable, K-Money was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, his fortune and influence rendered powerless against the law. And for Amina, the outcome was both relief and sorrow. Relief that justice had been served, and sorrow for the lives lost, especially Shadi, whose envy and recklessness had led her to a tragic end, prompting Amina to travel to Shade's family in Onondo State to reveal the truth, sharing the horrifying events, the betrayal, the sacrifice, and the capture of K-Money, while also consoling the grieving parents, who, through their tears, expressed both pain and the bitter recognition of their daughter's jealousy and wickedness. And in these moments, Amina's empathy and strength shone, helping the family understand the events, find closure, and recognize the dangers of envy. And after returning from Anana, she resolved to reclaim her life fully, moving from Oshobu to Abuja, starting her career in telecommunications, earning honest money, establishing her independence, purchasing her own car and apartment, and embracing a life of integrity, self-respect, and deliberate choices. And in this new chapter, she found peace not in wealth or validation from others, but in the quiet knowledge that survival, resilience, and ethical living are victories greater than any luxury or affection bought with blood. And while K-Money was imprisoned, the memory of danger lingered, shaping her perspective on relationships, trust, and personal safety, reinforcing that patience, discernment, and caution are indispensable in a world where envy and greed can mask themselves behind charm, wealth, and power. And ultimately, Amina emerged not merely as a survivor, but as a symbol of courage, awareness, and the profound wisdom earned through confronting deceit, obsession, and mortality, with every choice and step forward a testament to the strength and insight gained from the shadows she had walked through, forever guiding her toward a life of safety, fulfillment, and the quiet satisfaction of having survived evil with both her life and her integrity intact. After the chaos, the arrests, and the trial, Amina finally felt the heavy weight of fear and uncertainty lift. Yet she knew the trauma lingered, shaping her every thought. So she made the courageous decision to leave Oshobu, seeking a fresh start, away from memories of betrayal, danger, and loss. And she spent the journey to Abuja reflecting on her life, the lessons learned from Shadi's envy, K-Money's obsession, and the fragility of trust, realizing that contentment and self-reliance were her greatest armor. And within 6 months, she completed her service year, received her discharge certificate, and secured a stable, respectable job in a telecommunications company with a modest but honest salary, earning her independence and the pride that comes from achieving success on one's own terms. And she settled into a small but neat 1-bedroom apartment, carefully furnished with her own money, a sanctuary where she could live without fear. And in these moments, she embraced a sense of freedom she had never known, savoring simple pleasures, walking through markets, preparing her own meals, and enjoying evenings of quiet reflection, no longer reliant on anyone for validation. And as life in Abuja unfolded, Amina gradually reclaimed her confidence, engaging with colleagues, gaining respect through competence and professionalism, and discovering the satisfaction of work done well, all while resisting the temptation to rush into new relationships, remembering her mother's wise counsel about caution and patience. And one Saturday afternoon at Jabi Lake Mall, when approached by a handsome young man admiring her beauty and asking for her number, she politely declined, her head held high, embodying the strength and self-awareness she had cultivated through trials. And over the next 3 years, she advanced in her career, receiving promotions, increasing her salary, purchasing her own car, and investing in land for her future home. all achievements rooted in her diligence and ethical choices, rather than wealth tainted with deceit or blood. And though men pursued her, some rich, some charming, she remained patient, valuing inner peace over transient attraction, reflecting on past events, not with bitterness, but with gratitude for survival, and praying for those who had tried to harm her, including Shadi, whose envy had ended tragically, and K-Money, whose imprisonment was a cautionary tale of greed. And through it all, Amina developed a quiet wisdom, recognizing the importance of discernment, resilience, and self-respect, and she cultivated deep, meaningful friendships based on trust, empathy, and shared values, learning that true happiness arises not from material gain or external validation, but from the alignment of heart, mind, and actions. And as she walked through Abuja's streets, visited her workplace, and enjoyed her modest home, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had survived danger, deception, and betrayal, yet emerged stronger, wiser, and fully capable of building the life she deserved. And the lessons of her past jealousy can be deadly. Material wealth can mask evil, trust must be earned, and patience is a form of power guided every decision she made, shaping her into a woman who understood that her worth was inherent. And in this life, Amina learned to celebrate herself, to invest in her growth, and to cherish the blessings that came from hard work, integrity, and careful choices. And as she lay in her apartment at night, reflecting on how far she had come, she whispered prayers of gratitude, asking for continued protection, wisdom, and the ability to remain vigilant yet hopeful. And with each passing day, she continued to thrive, building a foundation for a future free from fear, filled with peace, dignity, and the quiet joy that comes from knowing that survival, courage, and ethical living are victories greater than any fortune, luxury, or romantic pursuit. And through her journey, she became an example of resilience and prudence, a testament to the power of overcoming adversity, and a reminder that life's most valuable treasures are contentment, self-respect, and the ability to walk forward with integrity, no longer shadowed by jealousy, obsession, or danger. Amina's life in Abuja continued with calm and purpose, but deep inside, the memories of betrayal, loss, and danger never fully faded, reminding her to remain vigilant and to trust wisely. And though she had embraced independence and self-reliance, she found herself reflecting often on the fragility of relationships, the hidden envy that can fester in hearts close to us, and the deceptive allure of wealth and power, understanding that not everyone celebrating your success is sincere. And she carefully observed those around her, cultivating friendships grounded in honesty, loyalty, and mutual respect, while gently avoiding those who exhibited manipulation, greed, or duplicity. And in her personal life, she resolved never to repeat past mistakes of rushing into love or seeking validation through another person, recognizing that self-worth must come from within, and that contentment and inner peace were far more valuable than the fleeting thrill of romance. And so, when opportunities arose for social interactions, Amina participated selectively, engaging with kind and genuine people while maintaining boundaries. And one afternoon, while walking through a quiet park after a long day at work, she observed couples laughing and friends sharing moments of joy. Yet, instead of longing, she felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, a testament to her emotional growth and resilience. And she silently reminded herself of the lessons learned from Shadi's jealousy and K-Money's obsession. Envy and greed can destroy lives. False appearances can conceal danger, and integrity and patience are shields against harm. And these reflections informed her choices, whether at work, at home, or in social spaces, shaping her interactions and ensuring she did not compromise her peace or values for temporary gains or flattering words. And as weeks passed, Amina's confidence deepened. Her demeanor calm yet assertive, her independence radiant, and she began mentoring younger colleagues at her telecommunications job, teaching them not only technical skills, but also the importance of discernment, ethical conduct, and perseverance, emphasizing that success achieved with honesty and integrity is sweeter and more lasting than wealth obtained through shortcuts or immoral means. And in her personal growth journey, she discovered new passions, reading books on psychology, self-development, and culture, journaling her thoughts and reflections, and practicing mindfulness and gratitude, which helped her process trauma while fostering resilience. And she also took time to care for her physical health, exercising, cooking nutritious meals, and enjoying walks in the city, cultivating a lifestyle that nourished both body and soul. And in this time of healing, Amina realized that true freedom was multifaceted. It was escaping danger, achieving financial independence, learning to trust cautiously, loving oneself, and creating a life that no one could destabilize. And she celebrated small victories daily, from completing work projects to arranging her apartment just the way she liked it, to discovering peaceful moments of solitude where she could reflect without fear or anxiety. And over the months, her story quietly became one of inspiration to her friends and acquaintances, who observed her composure, strength, and thoughtful choices. And though the past would occasionally resurface in memories, Amina had developed the wisdom to meet each thought with reflection rather than fear, prayer rather than panic, and action rather than hesitation. And she often recounted to herself the key truths life had taught her. Jealousy destroys, patience empowers, contentment is wealth, self-love is protection, and ethical living ensures peace. And with these guiding principles, Amina faced each new day with clarity, focus, and courage, embracing both challenges and opportunities with a calm determination, always mindful of the people she allowed close to her, never forgetting that the heart must be protected as diligently as one's body, and that wisdom comes not from experience alone, but from reflection on experience. And in this chapter of her life, Amina embodied resilience, mindfulness, independence, and moral courage, living a life that was safe, meaningful, and grounded. A life where every choice reflected the lessons of her past and the hope for a future defined by dignity, peace, and authentic happiness. Despite her thriving new life in Abuja, Amina knew that shadows from her past could resurface at any moment. And though she had built a secure apartment, a steady job, and a circle of trustworthy friends, she remained vigilant, understanding that danger often hides behind familiarity and charm. And while she spent her days focused on work and personal growth, memories of K-Money's obsession, Shadi's betrayal, and the violent events that had once threatened her life still echoed in her mind, reminding her to move cautiously And so when she walked through busy streets or rode in taxis, she remained alert, scanning her surroundings discreetly. And although she had reported K-Money to the EFCC and local police, and despite his arrest and conviction, she was acutely aware that danger could arise from unknown quarters. And this awareness did not breed paranoia, but a disciplined caution guiding her actions and decisions. And in her social life, she chose interactions carefully, avoiding people whose intentions were unclear or whose behavior suggested manipulation or greed. And she found comfort in small routines, preparing her own meals, exercising, visiting local markets, and spending quiet evenings reading or journaling while her career flourished. And she was recognized for her competence, diligence, and integrity at the telecommunications company, earning promotions and respect from her colleagues and supervisors alike. And though men occasionally approached her, attracted by her beauty or status, Amina exercised discernment, politely refusing advances that did not align with her values or intentions, understanding that her emotional and personal safety were paramount. And in private moments, she reflected on the lessons of her past, that jealousy can be deadly, that wealth tainted by immorality brings danger, that appearances can deceive, and that trusting intuition and careful observation are essential. And she nurtured relationships with those she could trust, cultivating loyalty, honesty, and mutual support. And when news of new threats or crimes reached her, she evaluated each situation logically, sometimes consulting trusted authorities, while always maintaining her independence and sense of control. And she began documenting her experiences in her journal, creating a record not only for herself, but also to guide and warn others, emphasizing how vigilance, wisdom, patience, and ethical living can protect one from harm. And this process of reflection and documentation became therapeutic, helping her process trauma, cultivate emotional resilience, and strengthen decision-making. And she also committed to ongoing self-improvement, attending workshops, reading extensively on psychology, leadership, and ethical living, and practicing mindfulness and meditation, which allowed her to navigate life with a sense of calm authority, even in moments of stress. And gradually, she realized that empowerment comes not only from avoiding harm, but from building skills, knowledge, and clarity of purpose. And as months passed, she noticed a shift in her perspective. The fear that once dominated her thoughts was replaced by thoughtful caution, the anxiety tempered by preparedness, and the vulnerability transformed into inner strength. And she applied these lessons daily, whether managing work responsibilities, navigating city streets, or assessing potential friendships or romantic interests. And while the scars of betrayal and danger remained, they became symbols of resilience rather than weakness, reminders that survival requires both caution and courage. And ultimately, Amina's life evolved into a balance of professional success, personal independence, emotional resilience, and moral clarity, a life carefully curated to honor her past experiences while embracing a future defined by safety, integrity, and meaningful achievement. And in this chapter of her life, she emerged as a woman who had faced darkness and deception, survived threats and betrayal, and transformed these challenges into wisdom, strength, and a guiding compass for every decision she made, living fully, cautiously, and wisely. her every choice a testament to the hard-earned lessons of a turbulent past, and her story became not only one of survival, but a beacon of caution, resilience, and empowerment for others navigating the complexities of trust, jealousy, and ambition in a world where appearances can deceive and danger often lurks in unexpected corners. 6 months after settling in Abuja, Amina woke each day with a sense of freedom she had never known. The traumas of Oshobu slowly transforming into lessons and inner strength. And though the memories of Shadi's betrayal, K-Money's obsession, and the harrowing ordeal of that night lingered like shadows in her mind, they no longer controlled her. Instead, reminding her of the value of vigilance, patience, and self-respect. And her mornings began with intentional routines, prayer, meditation, a light breakfast, and reviewing her work tasks, cultivating a discipline that grounded her in the present and prepared her for challenges that might come. And at the telecommunications company, she excelled, her talents recognized by her supervisors and colleagues, earning her praise and promotion. And while her income of 350,000 naira per month initially felt like a small victory compared to the ostentatious wealth K-Money flaunted, it was clean, honest, and satisfying, giving her a sense of independence and pride that no ritual-tainted fortune could provide. And in her modest one-bedroom apartment in the Lube district, she cultivated a life of simplicity and order, decorating it with plants, books, and personal touches that reflected her taste and personality, while also creating a safe haven where she could process her thoughts, plan her future, and reflect on lessons learned. And on weekends she explored Abuja cautiously yet freely, walking through markets, visiting malls, and occasionally taking trips to Jabi Lake or quiet parks, savoring the peace she had fought so hard to secure. And though men approached her occasionally, she met them with polite refusal or cautious engagement, knowing now that her heart was not to be given lightly, and that trust must be earned through time, honesty, and integrity. And in these moments, she often smiled at her own growth, remembering how fear, doubt, and dependence once clouded her judgment, and now she moved with confidence, aware of her own worth and unshakable in her decisions. And beyond her daily life, Amina made a conscious effort to invest in self-improvement, reading, learning new skills, attending seminars, and journaling her thoughts and reflections, turning every challenge into a lesson, and cultivating patience, resilience, and mindfulness. And the lessons of her past Shadi's jealousy, the attempted ritual sacrifice, K-Money's obsession, were never forgotten but reframed as wisdom and cautionary insight, guiding her choices in friendships, professional matters, and even casual encounters. And this mindfulness extended into her relationships with her family, particularly her mother, whose advice had been crucial in helping Amina rebuild her life, reminding her to guard her heart, move carefully, and prioritize her own well-being. And, as time passed, she recognized that true contentment came from self-reliance, integrity, and inner peace, not wealth, validation, or the approval of others. And even as the anniversary of the traumatic events approached, she faced the memories with grace and gratitude, praying for strength and protection for the rest of Shadi's soul, and for her own continued growth and safety. And in her heart, she knew that life had given her a second chance, and that she must live it fully, wisely, and honorably. And so she nurtured meaningful friendships, gave generously to those in need, and sought experiences that enriched her mind and spirit. And in moments of quiet reflection, she felt proud of her evolution from a young woman caught in the web of deceit, jealousy, and danger into someone who was resilient, empowered, and in control of her destiny. And as she looked out from her apartment balcony at the sprawling city below, she smiled, feeling a profound sense of freedom and peace, knowing that she had survived, learned, and thrived, and that whatever challenges lay ahead, she had the wisdom, courage, and discernment to face them, and that her life, built on honest effort and ethical choices, was a testament to her resilience and the power of moving forward with clarity, strength, and unwavering self-respect. And in this chapter of her life, Amina realized that the past no longer dictated her future, and that every decision she made, every boundary she set, and every goal she pursued was an affirmation of her newfound freedom, her autonomy, and her determination to live a life untainted by jealousy, deceit, or fear. And she embraced each day with gratitude, vigilance, and hope, ready for the adventures and opportunities that awaited her in this new dawn of her life. Even as Amina settled into her new life in Abuja, moving confidently through her daily routines, the shadows of her past lingered quietly, subtle yet persistent reminders of the traumas she had endured. And though K-Money had been arrested and the EFCC had dismantled his operations, she remained vigilant, knowing that the scars left by betrayal, obsession, and danger were not erased by time alone. And she continued to guard her privacy meticulously, keeping her apartment secure with locks, cameras, and trusted neighbors who discreetly watched for any unusual activity, while also maintaining strict boundaries with social media, sharing only what was necessary and choosing her friendships carefully, preferring people of integrity who valued honesty and respect. And in her moments of solitude, she reflected on the lessons learned. Never trust appearances blindly. Value personal safety above material gain, and nurture self-worth above all. And though life in Abuja offered her peace and independence, there were days when memories of Shadi's jealousy and ultimate sacrifice, the terrifying birthday party, and the chilling realization of K-Money's ritualistic intentions would creep into her thoughts, reminding her that danger often wears the face of familiarity, and that even those closest to you can harbor envy, greed, and darkness. And yet, Amina had transformed fear into strength, using her past as a compass to navigate future decisions. And her growth was evident in how she interacted with others, confident, assertive, discerning, and unafraid to speak her mind, never compromising her values for approval, love, or validation. And her career flourished because she approached challenges with intelligence, patience, and ethical rigor, earning respect, promotions, and genuine friendships among colleagues. And while she occasionally thought about romance, she remained steadfast in prioritizing personal growth, security, and emotional clarity, knowing that rushing into relationships could jeopardize both, and that true connection required trust, mutual respect, and transparency. And she often recalled her mother's advice to take time to know the person well and never let greed, jealousy, or haste dictate the heart. And Amina applied these principles not just in relationships, but in every aspect of life, from finances to professional partnerships, ensuring that every decision was deliberate, thoughtful, and free from impulsive emotion. And as she walked through Joby Lake Mall, visited markets, or took quiet weekend trips, she observed people, learned from their interactions, and strengthened her intuition, becoming increasingly attuned to signs of deceit, manipulation, or envy. And though her past had been harrowing, it had shaped her into someone who could recognize danger, protect herself, and act decisively when necessary. And in moments of reflection, she offered prayers of gratitude for survival, clarity, and wisdom, acknowledging the role of divine guidance in her journey. And she sought ways to give back, mentoring younger women, helping friends navigate difficult situations, and offering advice on independence and resilience, while also setting aside time for personal development, exploring books on psychology, leadership, and ethics, and practicing meditation and mindfulness to maintain emotional equilibrium. And gradually, she felt the heavy weight of fear lifting, replaced by a quiet confidence and inner peace that radiated from her presence. And though the memories of loss and betrayal were never entirely gone, they became part of a narrative of triumph, vigilance, and wisdom, a testament to her resilience. And Amina realized that life's greatest power lies not in wealth, beauty, or social standing, but in knowledge, integrity, and the courage to face danger, injustice, and envy. And as she prepared for the next chapter of her life career growth, personal fulfillment, and the possibility of genuine love, she did so with the awareness that her past would continue to guide her, protecting her from repeating mistakes, inspiring her to choose wisely, and reminding her that the greatest victories are not always those celebrated by others, but those quietly earned through perseverance, prudence, and unwavering self-respect. And in this stage of life, Amina embraced every sunrise with gratitude, every challenge with courage, and every relationship with clarity, knowing that the shadows of her past, though present, no longer controlled her destiny. Amina's new life in Abuja blossomed in ways she had never imagined. The trauma and chaos of Oshobu and Lameko, now distant memories that had shaped her into a woman of resilience, vigilance, and profound self-respect. And every morning she woke up in her neat one-bedroom apartment with sunlight spilling across the floor. She reminded herself of how far she had come from fear, betrayal, and danger to independence, safety, and purpose. And her job at the telecommunications company thrived under her capable hands, earning her praise, promotions, and responsibilities that challenged her intellect and rewarded her integrity. And though her salary of 850,000 naira was modest compared to the riches of men like K Money, it was honest, earned with effort and skill, and it felt infinitely sweeter than any blood-stained fortune. And she spent weekends exploring Abuja's parks, markets, and cafes, learning to enjoy her own company, savoring the freedom to make decisions without pressure or manipulation. And while friends occasionally suggested dating, Amina declined politely but firmly, her heart cautious, her past experiences guiding her in valuing self-worth and emotional safety over fleeting affection. And she cultivated a small circle of trustworthy friends who respected her boundaries and ambitions, who celebrated her successes without envy and supported her when challenges arose. And Amina continued her spiritual practices, prayers, and reflections, recognizing that her survival and growth were not only products of her own intelligence and courage, but also of divine protection and the prayers of her mother, whose wisdom and love remained a guiding light in every decision. And she occasionally thought of Shadi, the friend whose jealousy had led to her tragic demise. And though she felt sorrow for the life lost, she also acknowledged the lessons of envy, pride, and the danger of unchecked desire, vowing never to let resentment or comparison take root in her own heart. And as she navigated the city streets, she became increasingly aware of her own intuition, sensing deceit, manipulation, or ill intentions in ways she never could before. A skill honed by past experiences and a steadfast commitment to self-preservation. And she documented her journey in journals, writing reflections on courage, patience, and resilience, reminding herself daily that peace, honesty, and clarity were the true markers of wealth. And she invested in herself through courses, seminars, and reading, building knowledge and skills that empowered her to create opportunities, rather than relying on unstable or dangerous sources of income. And though she occasionally encountered men who were charming, wealthy, or persuasive, she maintained her boundaries with grace and clarity, declining advances with politeness but without compromise, understanding fully that true partnership required integrity, mutual respect, and emotional balance. And this new Amina embraced life with gratitude, from quiet evenings watching sunsets to spontaneous walks around Jabi Lake, appreciating the freedom to live without fear, the ability to make choices without coercion, and the luxury of safety. And she began envisioning her future, owning her own home, perhaps traveling to learn more about the world, continuing her career growth, and building a life that reflected her values rather than the expectations or obsessions of others. And in moments of reflection, she recognized that surviving K-Money, Shadi's jealousy, and the horrors of the past had forged in her a strength that no wealth, deception, or danger could shake. And she smiled quietly at the thought that her independence, self-respect, and careful discernment were victories far greater than any material gain. And she knew, deep in her heart, that she was no longer the frightened, trusting girl who had once been vulnerable to manipulation, but a woman who could navigate life's complexities with wisdom, courage, and grace, ready for the opportunities, challenges, and joys that lay ahead, fully aware that happiness, contentment, and true wealth are cultivated from within, and that every sunrise offered her a fresh start, a chance to live freely, honor her values, and protect herself with the vigilance born of experience. And as she looked forward, she embraced the knowledge that her past, while painful, had prepared her to live fully, wisely, and peacefully, and that this chapter of her life, her chapter of independence, clarity, and new horizons, was only the beginning of the woman she was meant to become.